What's up, Joe? What's up, everybody? The Major League Baseball season is here, and we at Sports360 are right in the swing of things. Today, we're not talking to experts, but to ordinary fans. And not just any fans, New York fans. I'm talking Mets and Yankees. When Met and Yankee fans get together, man, anything can happen. Don't know what I'm talking about? Need me to explain it to you? Forget about it. Stay right there and find out for yourself as we're talking Mets and Yankees on Sports 360. The 2019 baseball season is underway, and as someone who hails from New York City, it only makes sense that we begin by talking some New York baseball. I'm talking about Mets and Yankees. And today on Sports 360, we have some Yankees fans in the house, Victor Cruz and Roberto Duran. And representing the Mets, we have Rob Hoskins. And I'm a Mets fan too, so I'm going to be joining Rob in the Mets camp just so that to make sure that this is an even fight. But guys, how you doing today?
Doing good. I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yes, thank you for having me. Doing well.
Thanks, Jeff. But I have to admit, not really having met these fine gentlemen, if I'm going up against Victor Cruz and Roberto Duran, I mean, just by names alone, that sounds like I'm a little bit overmatched here.
That's right.
You know what? That I was about to say the same thing, Rob. I mean, because I'm coming home tonight and I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute. I have two Yankees fans. Yeah, one of them's Roberto Duran, but he's not that Roberto Duran. And the other one is Victor Cruz, but he's not that Victor Cruz. And I said, leave it to Yankees fans, man, to start pulling the flim flam on you, man.
Right. They got championships coming out everywhere. They got Super Bowl champions, boxing champions. Okay, here we go.
Here we go. It's going to be one of those calls, Rob. It's going to be one of those calls. But look, I'm glad to have everybody on, man, to talk a little baseball. And, I'd like to start really with some little soft background questions, man, just so our listeners can get a feel for each one of you guys. And, as being Mets fans and Yankees fans, and I'm going to start with the Yankees fans first. And just tell us a little bit about how long each one of you have been rooting for your hometown team. You can start with you, Victor.
Yeah, well, let's see. I've been a Yankee fan since I can't remember. So I grew up in New York, and let's see. I went to my first Yankee game, unfortunately, later in life because I grew up. My mom was a single mom, couldn't really get to a game, but my best friend took me to a game in '95. And while I was a Yankee fan watching them on TV, it was my first experience live, and ever since then, it's been kind of a diehard affiliation. Interestingly enough, I had a time in my career where I worked for the Red Sox, but I was still a diehard Yankee fan, so that's always interesting time in my life. But yeah, it's been that long. I mean, let's see, that's '95. It's been over 20 some odd years I've been a Yankee fan.
What about you, Roberto? How long you been rooting for the Yanks?
I've been alive for 28 years, so I'll say 28 years. I was born and raised in New York. I think I probably saw my first game on TV when I was about 3 or 4 years old. So right before the whole, Yankee dynasty began. And, I think I went to my first game. I remember it was against the Twins, and they won in the ninth inning. It was Posada hit a double to put them up 4-3, and it was like a love at first sight kind of thing for me and the Yankees.
Yeah, that first game experience is what always is an interesting story. Like my first game was it was Umbrella Day at Yankee Stadium. It was actually raining, and it was against the Baltimore Orioles. I thought, all right, that was cool. I loved it so much that the very next day I bought tickets and I went again and watched the Yankees from the the first day was at the bleachers, and I loved it because being in New York, it was crazy in the bleachers back in the 90s. And then the next day I went with my girlfriend. I'm like, okay, I can't put her out there, so we went into the mezzanine level behind home plate. And so I got to see kind of the two different worlds that exist at a stadium, and that was awesome. That was a great experience.
Okay. And Rob, what about you? How long you been rooting for the Mets?
Oh man, after listening to those two guys, I gotta say, Jeffy, I know you're starting to laugh. I have a ticket stub. I'll say it this way: I have a ticket stub in my little scrapbook from 1974.
Wow.
Oh, okay.
And I've been a Met fan since about 1972. It was 1970, 72. I was 6 years old, and in 74, I was, a couple of years older. But I've been a Met fan since that time. My dad took me to my first game at Shea Stadium. So I've been through a lot of suffering, a lot of. So it's funny. I'm just sitting here reacting, hearing you guys who are a lot younger and have been Yankee fans since really the beginning of their dynasty in the 90s. But, it makes it a little difficult. All I have to say to you guys is just one name, Danny Tartable. Just remember that name.
Right.
Wow. Hey, Rob, we were supposed to play nice in the beginning, man. These are the soft questions. These are the getting to know you questions.
Listen, I mean, hey, it's just with younger Yankee fans like these guys who experienced everything from 1996 and on, there's an expectation, and I get it, and what's not to like when you're a kid and you're watching Derek Jeter and all these guys. Hey, I get it. I mean, listen, and back in 76 and 77, 78, I mean, I rooted for Reggie Jackson and Chris Chambliss and Thurman Munson and those guys.
Oh, see, but this is where it comes out. This is where it comes out. Mets fans always come out with, at some point, they rooted for the Yankees. You'll never hear a Yankee fan root for the Mets in their career, in their life. So there we go.
Oh, okay.
Wow, man.
Hey, Rob, I give you credit for that. It's a lot to admit that.
Listen, you gotta see, but this is what younger Yankee fans don't understand. Because now, when they start to talk about that, let me just explain. I don't root for the Yankees. I've rooted for players, as I described. But you got to remember, at that time, 1977 in particular, the Mets committed one of the most heinous acts of all time to two Met fans in the history of the franchise. And that was the trading of Tom Seaver to the Cincinnati Reds. Mm-hmm. Now, this would have been akin to the Yankees after, let's say, 2000, 2001, trading Derek Jeter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Imagine if that would have taken place, or even later, at any point after some of the championships. So this is what the Mets had done, and there wasn't a lot to root for. Now, I was still, always at that point. I'm fully entrenched as a Mets fan as a kid, but when the city is excited and Reggie Jackson is hitting 3 home runs in the same game, hey, you know what? You go with it.
Now, here's the thing. And Rob's my man, but Rob, you almost sound like you're a cranky old man when it comes to Mets.
Right. Well, Jeff, I'm curious to hear kind of your story on being a Mets fan.
Well, see, I didn't want to go there because, I would have to say that, look, I've been a Mets fan probably for almost 50 years, man. I've been watching, yeah. So, and so we already got one old man on here.
Yeah, he's the older man.
Jeff, my follow-up question is, what were your periods of rooting for the Yankees?
Oh my gosh.
You see?
Okay. Let's let the record show. Okay. I've never rooted for the Yankees. Now, here's the thing, though. I will say this: I don't root against the Yankees because they're New York, so I don't root against them. I don't have a problem so much with the Yankees, and I will even say this: I enjoy excellence, and the Yankees, they've been an excellent franchise. The thing I have a problem with are some Yankees fans. Now, it could be present company excluded from that. We're going to have to wait to see how this conversation goes.
Right.
Keyword could be.
We'll see how it is by the end of it.
All right. What about this? So, Rob, you mentioned Tom Seaver. Is that your favorite Met of all time?
Well, in some of the questions that you gave, I would say, a lot of Met fans would say yes, Tom Seaver stands out as the franchise, obviously. But when I was a kid, my very first favorite Met was actually Buddy Harrelson, because he was one of the first baseball cards that I had, and I thought it was such a cool picture. And when I watched him on TV, the way he played, I just, he was my guy in the very beginning.
Harrelson.
So
Bud Harrelson.
Bud Harrelson. Yeah,
Oh my
Buddy
gosh.
Harrelson.
Oh man.
And then,
so you and
there's a
the
bunch.
Harrelson family rooted for Bud Harrelson the most.
Yeah,
I've never heard anybody say their favorite Met was Bud Harrelson.
Well, I mean, look, I was 6 or 7 years old. Look, over the years, obviously Cleon Jones was one of my favorites. John Milner, Tom Seaver is probably at the top of the list. And then you just go through the years. Doc and Darryl.
Okay, so you don't have a favorite. You just have a whole bunch of guys.
Yeah, I can't really say who is number one overall all time, other than Tom Seaver. But yeah.
All right. So let's see if the Yankees fans. What about you, Roberto? You have an all-time favorite Yankee?
And don't say Mickey Mantle or Babe Ruth, because the Yankees, y'all can't claim that.
No, I don't. I go with my time. I have to go with the captain, Derek Jeter. He's the guy, the face of baseball during his time, and I don't know how you can pick against him.
I'll just be glad he's not your general manager.
And Victor, what about you? What do you have as a favorite Yankee?
Well, for me, I'm a little older than Roberto, so for me, I grew up watching Donnie Baseball, so I got two favorite players, Donnie Baseball, Don Mattingly, and then Bernie Williams. Bernie Williams, interestingly enough, because and my best friend always described me kind of like that. He said the way I am as a person reminds him of Bernie Williams, because Bernie was quiet and went about his business. I'm kind of a quiet person, go about my business. So he was always my favorite player after Don Mattingly retired.
Okay. Now, what about the flip side of that? Go ahead. Who said that?
Roberto here.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
About Bernie Williams, I think he's very underappreciated, even by us Yankee fans.
Yeah, because he's not mentioned in the what is it, the core four?
The core four.
I'm like, it shouldn't be 4, it should be 5, because Bernie was there, and he was probably he was a modern Mr. October during the 90s when the Yankees were going into the World Series all those years, and people forget about that.
Was he a homegrown Yankee? Did he come up through the minors?
Yep, he was homegrown, and so surprisingly, I always get offended when they say the core four, and I'm like, well, what about Bernie Williams? He deserves just as much.
The same thing growing up. Like, I think he came up maybe a year or two before the other guys, so that's why they don't include him into the group. He was just as important as everyone else.
Yeah, but if anything, for me, Bernie's the one who ushered in the modern era of the Yankees, and then Derek Jeter came up and Posada, but Bernie was the one who kind of was the new face of the new era of the Yankees, and they just don't give him that credit. And I think it's partly because of that, because he would go about his business quietly. He had that aura about him, but not enough for people to give him credit.
Okay, so that's a good one. Okay, what about the flip side of that coin? Least favorite Met or Yankee?
All right,
And
let me go
Roberto, I'm gonna
first.
start with. Who's that? Victor, you want to go first?
Yeah,
You got somebody?
Yeah, my least favorite Yankee was Randy Johnson. Horrible tenure with the Yankees. He was my least favorite Yankee.
Terrible.
Terrible.
Okay. And Roberto, what about you?
I have a tie here between Jacoby Ellsbury and Carl Pavano.
No.
Those are good ones.
Does Pavano even count though? Because he maybe had 5 starts in 4 years for them. But man, it was mystery injury after mystery injury with him every season. And Jacoby Ellsbury, I don't even know where to start with that.
Right.
So I'll just leave it there.
Okay. And Rob, what about you on the Mets side?
There's a whole lot to choose from. The least favorites. I mean, at the time, you could say Bobby Bonilla, but
I was gonna say you're still paying him. You're still paying him.
Yeah, that's the thing. But you know what? You gotta give him credit because he's got the greatest retirement pension in the history of the world. So he did something right. But not when he was in uniform though.
Well, his agent did. His agent did. Yeah.
Exactly. But there's a whole list. I mean, you know.
Well, for me, my favorite Met of all time is Tommy Agee. That's my favorite Met. Yeah. And my least favorite Met of all time is George Foster because he just never should have been a Met. He was great with Cincinnati, and he was terrible with the Mets. I like George Foster, but he's my least favorite Met. So, Rob, let me ask you a question because you started this off, and it seemed like you've been agitated from the time we got on this call. So, what would you say? You're a Mets fan, and you said, listen, Absolutely. You made it clear, I don't root for the Yankees. I never rooted for the Yankees. So what makes it better to root for the Mets than the Yankees, in your opinion? I mean, why would you say I'm not going to root for the Yankees, but you root for the Mets?
Well, that's a hard question to really answer because the only way, you really become a Met fan when you're a kid, and if you stay with them, like I said, you suffer through a lot of disappointment. But it's something about those early impressions of Shea, of the uniform. I mean, it's all of those types of things that, just kind of play into it. And I don't know if it makes it better. I mean, as you get older and you look at the franchises as how they've done business over the years, I mean, you watch George Steinbrenner run the Yankees, firing managers and rehiring them and then firing them, going out and getting the big ticket free agents and trying to stack up the team. And then, the Yankees have become that team that just tries to buy championships. And you say, you know what? That's not baseball. That's not what enjoyable. They just, and then at the same time, if you look at people who go to Yankee games and you say, well, it's just the corporate crowd. It's the Wall Street guys. And, and if you're, working folks like us, I mean, you want to connect with the team that's, more like, I guess it's, I guess it's kind of a throwback to and it's also kind of a throwback to the National League versus the American League when the Dodgers and the Giants were in the city. I mean, a lot of, my father was a Brooklyn Dodger fan, and so it kind of just, rolled from there,
Okay. And so what about Roberto? What about you? Why the Yankees? How come you didn't pick up on the Mets? I mean, you were in New York, and you've seen the Mets. You've seen those uniforms. I mean, why haven't you ever come on the other side and said, you know what, it's pretty cool over here too?
To be honest, I think it's a lot of what Rob pointed out earlier. I was kind of born into the golden age of when, the Yankees began winning, and winning is good. I didn't want to suffer. And, I grew up in Manhattan, so all I saw was a lot of Yankee hats. I didn't see a lot of Mets colors or anything like that. So that just kind of attracted me, the winning, the pinstripes. It speaks volumes. So, like, I understand what players say when they say, this is like a dream to put on the pinstripes. So, I think the mystique of the team, the history of it, and just it's the greatest organization in professional sports. And I think that's attractive to, kids growing up, seeing that and wanting to be a part of that fan base and things like that. So, I don't have a lot of negative to say about being a Mets fan or people who are Mets fans. I had Mets fans growing up that were friends. And, I wasn't too hard on them, but I let them know about the success on the other side.
Yeah, but that's because the team was hard on them enough, so we don't have to be hard on them.
That's true.
You know what I will say, and Victor, I'll give you a chance to answer this question too, but here's for me. I like rooting for the Mets because they have a couple of things, in my opinion. I mean, it's not even opinion, it's just fact. We have two things, Rob, that the Yankees and Yankee fans don't have. We have a mascot.
We don't need one. We don't need the gimmick.
Nah, man, come on.
We don't need the gimmick.
That's right.
We got a mascot, right?
We don't even need the names. We don't need the names on the jerseys because we don't need that. We don't need the gimmicks. We don't need to identify our players because we know who they are.
Ooh,
oh, boy.
Ooh, okay.
All right.
Well, all right. But here's the other part, Victor. Why I think it's better to be on this side. We got a mascot, number one, and second, we got a theme song. Y'all don't. Meet the Mets, step right up and greet the Mets. Y'all don't have.
Bring your kitties, bring your wife.
What they have, Bernie Williams.
Clap,
Derek Jeter.
Hey, that's all we need. That's all we need. It's a call.
But see, that only works when the player has 4 syllables in his name. Try that with CC Sabathia.
Yeah.
So we're better, Rob. We got a mascot,
yes,
and we got a theme song.
And a theme
That's
song.
it. We win. We win.
Yeah, but we'll take the history and the championships over theme song and mascot.
Here they go. See, I knew it. Yankee fans, here we go. They're gonna come out with the 27 World Championships. And we got all these rings.
If you got them,
blah blah blah.
You might as well because
no. See, you guys can't claim that. Babe Ruth and Whitey Ford and Yogi Berra don't have anything to do.
Okay, but in my era, we got way more championships still than the Mets. So I can still claim the ones from my era.
The point there, Rob.
Yes, that is the point.
Yeah,
the point that always sticks in the craw. Yes, yes. You are correct.
So Jeff, from my perspective, at least let me answer the question as well. So for me, it's about the tradition, and I got to be honest. So here's the deal: when I was growing up, I had 2 best friends who were older. One, actually, I remember was a Mets fan when the Mets won the World Series in '86, right? And then my other friend was a Yankee fan, and I don't know, maybe it was because my connection to each one, I connected more with one friend than the other, and that's the friend who brought me to my first Yankee game. And so honestly, that's what attracted me first. Because, hey, this is pretty cool. This is something that, someone I look up to admires. And I started, I went to the Yankees. I followed the Yankees. I learned about the history. And so I will say at the initial, I could have gone either way. It was kind of who I had the closer relationship with, and it was the Yankee fan. So that was my initial introduction to baseball in New York. And as I grew and as I matured as a fan, it was about the history. I like the history, just some that appealed to me.
Sure. And, and you make a good point there because especially with baseball seems of all the other sports to do the best job of celebrating its history. Sometimes maybe a bit too much, but they do a good job of celebrating their history. Okay, what about this? I wanna play a little game here. Play a little word association game. You guys ready?
Yeah.
Let's
Let's
go.
do it.
All right, I'm gonna start with Rob first, and it might not
Okay.
even be a word; it might be a phrase or whatever, but you get the point. All right, okay, Rob. So you're a Mets fan. Word association: Dr. K.
Oh, unbelievable. That's
But
that. I mean, he was. What do you want? Just a word?
yeah, I don't
Or
know. I mean, tell people who that. What's that mean to you, Dr. K?
oh yeah. I mean, he was. Doc Gooden was sensational. I mean, it was. You had to know the rotation and what day he was scheduled to pitch so you can make sure you get tickets for that game because his stuff was electric and you knew there was going to be 10 plus strikeouts that night. I mean,
Yeah.
he was sensational.
Hey Rob,
Okay.
can I ask you a quick question along those lines? So for me, Doc was a little bit before, like almost right when I started watching baseball. But for me, the equivalent would be a Pedro Martinez, right? Because I remember watching Pedro and thinking the same thing. Like you would have to know, when he was going to pitch because you wanted to be there because it was just unbelievable. So it sounds like the same kind of, aura and performance and just mystique to the player, right?
Um, yeah, yes, but I think Doc Gooden's when Doc Gooden came on as a rookie, he, I think his emergence on the big league level was just a little bit more sensational, more impactful. I'm trying to think of somebody that you could kind of compare it to, but I really don't. I really can't. I really
Well,
don't know. I mean,
I'll give you one that had a short lived because I watched him and I actually had a relationship with him as a professional. Is Jose Fernandez? He came onto the
Yeah.
scene, yeah, because of the
Okay.
Marlins, but still kind of
Yeah.
that like emergence onto the scene and just like stepping onto a stage and being dominant. So something like that, right?
Yeah.
Possibly. Yeah. I mean, what do
Yeah.
you think, Jeff? I mean,
Yeah. I mean,
because back then,
somewhat. I
'84,
mean,
when he was
yeah.
24-4 as a rookie, I
Yeah.
mean, Doc
Yeah. It
Gooden
was
was. I
special.
mean,
It was just
it was
special.
because there
Doc
hadn't been
was
guys
good.
throwing like him at
Yeah.
up until that time. Yeah, it's hard to really compare. Maybe I can think of one, but when he emerged as a rookie, it was just sensational. I mean, because there hadn't been a Pedro Martinez, there hadn't been those other guys for a
Yep.
long, long time. You could go back before Doc Gooden, you'd have to go back to like the Vita Blue or even a Bob Gibson to see that kind of electricity coming out of a guy's arm.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
it hit the stage when the Mets started to get really, really good. So
Yeah. All right. So you had your Dr. K. I'm gonna go to Roberto.
all right.
And again, word association. You ready, Roberto?
I'm ready.
And you can't get any help on this. 2018 Boston Red Sox.
Oh man, they were historically great. I can't lie. As a baseball fan, I'll put the Yankee fan part aside. As a strict baseball fan, historically great. Not as good as those '90s Yankees teams, but the team was sensational. Everything they did was right. Every ball bounced their way. Every call was their way. Alex Cora did an amazing job managing that team. I was a hardhead and picked against them in every series in the playoffs, hoping they would
That's what
lose.
you got to do as a Yankee fan. That's what you got to do. So yeah.
I have to pick, even going down to the wire in the World Series, I was like, they're going to win, but I have to pick against them anyway. But that team was they were great. I hated it, every second of it.
Okay, fair enough. But at least you're man enough to admit that. Okay, so I'm gonna give one to Victor. You ready, Victor?
Yeah.
2013 Boston Red Sox.
I see what you're doing here.
Well, it's funny because let me put it this way. For me, the Red Sox, I used to work for the Red Sox, so anything Red Sox related is amnesia. Is my word is amnesia. I don't want to know anything about them. Yeah, I want to know nothing about them. I want to have no memory of them.
So if I said 2007 and 2004 Boston Red Sox.
Okay, I will say.
Dave Roberts.
I will say this: the only memory I want to keep, I was in baseball operations in 2004, so that was probably the highlight of my career. So that's about the only memory I remember from the Red Sox, or I want to remember. And that was because it was such a great experience. I was there in St. Louis when they won the World Series, got on the field, celebrated with the team, was on the parade. It was just a magical season, and unfortunately coming back on against our Yankees, but it was historic. So it was nice to be a part of history.
Sure. Yeah, because that was. I mean, they were down 3-0 in the LCS and were able to come back. Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna spare you. No more Red Sox questions. Hey, let me ask you guys something serious though, as baseball fans. There's been a lot of talk about rules changes, and there's been a lot of rules changes made and things like that, pace of game and all that kind of stuff. As guys who've been watching baseball for a long time, do you guys have problems with the pace of the game? Do you think, some of the things that's been instituted are good ideas, bad ideas, somewhere in between? Yeah. I mean, how do you guys feel about the game and how it's played today?
Well, let me go first because I actually am very, I used to work in baseball operations. I was very traditional where I'm like, I worked for the Red Sox where at that time, they were kind of pushing not just the Red Sox, but baseball in general, going the analytics versus traditional scouting. And I was always, part of my job was dealing with the scouts. So I've always leaned towards more traditional. I will say as my career, grew, I learned to accept some of the changes. And as a fan, I got to tell you, going to the stadium, I get bored. I'd rather watch the game on TV, but that's also because I didn't go to the stadium until later in life. So for me, I remember watching Yankee games on TV as a kid. So I like the commentators, the what's going on TV. So when I sit at the stadium, it's missing that, and I get bored. So it's not necessarily a reflection of baseball, but a reflection of what I was used to when I first. But I think there's a lot more people who are like me, newer fans, newer generation that, we're in an age, in a society that we have ADHD. And so sitting in a ballpark for 3 hours, it gets boring. So, I am definitely open to the change of pace, movement because I think you need it because you don't want to lose fans. So you want to make it entertaining. And so for me, one of the biggest things also that I noticed when I moved from the East Coast to the West Coast and I went to Dodger Stadium, for me, Dodger Stadium was boring when I first got there. And actually, they've done this dramatic change over the last few years. I would say the last 5 years at upping the level of entertainment. You go to Dodger Stadium now, it's an electrifying kind of experience, even between innings. And I'm like, okay, I saw the positives in that. So I definitely am all for changes and keeping fans, interested and the game's exciting and between innings exciting, just making more of an experience.
What about you, Roberto? How you feel about it?
I'm kind of in between where Victor's saying and where the game is trying to go right now. I still enjoy going to baseball games and sitting through them and all that stuff. I know a lot of people who, like Victor was saying, get bored of the game, even watching it on TV. It's just, the game is too long, the season is too long. But I think they're trying to go in the right direction as far as appealing more to the younger crowd coming up. But I also don't want to see the game lose so much of its tradition where it becomes unrecognizable to the older generation or even, people my age who saw, the 90s baseball and 2000s baseball. I think there's ways to not affect the structure of what baseball is and attracting that young crowd, and maybe some of that is allowing players to be themselves more on the field. Something like basketball has been doing it in the NBA, allowing the guys to wear whatever color shoes they want, things like that. And I know like Mike Trout and Bryce Harper, those are guys that have expressed that thought of maybe, let's not so much change the rules, but let's change, how we're able to represent and be ourselves on the field and attract that young crowd, those little leaguers coming up, and get them excited about the game.
Okay. I agree with, and before I turn it to you, Rob, I agree with a lot of what you said. I mean, and particularly when you said, some changes perhaps need to be made, but you don't want to make the game unrecognizable. You know what I mean? Don't change sort of the essence of the game. And I think that's the sort of the tipping point and the balancing act that MLB has to, and the Players Association has to be mindful of. Rob, what about you? How do you feel about this whole, the rules changes and pace of game and those types of things?
Yeah, I think it's really hard for Major League Baseball to tinker with the rules. Listen, the game of baseball does not have a clock. It never has. The other sports have clocks. Baseball doesn't. And to try and insert a clock here or there, whether it's the pitcher, the batter stepping out, I mean, the umpires have to control what they can control to get guys going, but I understand that, there are some pitchers that take forever to throw the ball. And, there's a number of mound visits and all that kind of stuff. Maybe you can tweak some things here and there, but I think, for the sake of trying to capture and retain the younger fans, I mean, it's really my generation and, having done a bad job with the newer generation, because, we've made you guys have ADHD and all that stuff, so that you're more interested in action, as opposed to really appreciating a well-pitched game and appreciating pitching to the point where, if it's ground ball after ground ball or pop up and the guy's, mowing, striking out people, there's not a lot of action in the field, but the pitcher is putting on a performance that a lot of people might find boring, but, true baseball fans would find, just as exciting as, a game with grand slams and doubles off the wall and triples and everything. Those are exciting plays too, but sometimes you get those games where, a pitcher throws a one-hit gem and, not much is happening in the field, but it's really, it's just as exciting.
Yeah.
It's still a great baseball game.
Yeah,
it's hard,
Rob.
It's hard for new fans to appreciate that, I think.
Let me ask you this though, Rob. I mean, and I think that's fair, but let's go back to last year, right? Where there were more strikeouts than hits, and the batting average was like the lowest in like 40 some odd years, and there just wasn't a lot of action, right? Because if you're either hitting a home run, right, because the home runs are up, but so are strikeouts, and hits are down. So the actual action in the game, I think, is a problem. And I don't know if you get to that by rules changes, but the well-pitched game, I think everybody on this call can appreciate a well-pitched game, right? But the strikeouts, and the only time you score a run is because, you get a bunch of solo home runs. And wasn't that in the All-Star game? Didn't in the All-Star game, like every run was a home run or something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
And it's like, that's what baseball has become too much of. What happened to hit and run? What happened to doubles in the gap? What happened to line drives down the line? You know what I mean? And guys, rounding second and trying to go to third. You know what I mean? So,
well, I think you just answered it. I think the problem is that teams are not only looking for the home run. I mean, look at the Yankees. I mean, they've got two guys that to get a hit.
I think we lost you there, Rob.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, we got you back.
I was just going to say, okay. What I was saying was, I think that you have the answer in that teams are looking for the big power hitters. They're looking for the home run. That's why you have the shifts and all this stuff. And I think the guys who can hit the balls in the gap are just not the ones that are, looked for in whether it's in free agency or to being developed. And the style of managing, like you said, there's no hit and run. There's no, taking the extra base. It's, if the first two guys get on, then the next two guys are looked to hit the ball out. I mean, that's what their job is.
Yeah.
And I get it. I mean, it's exciting. It's what puts fans in the seats. But, to me, I'd rather have, instead of solo home runs, I'd rather have, 2-run, 3-run home runs and, a nice inning where, there's a nice rally to watch. But,
Sure.
You just don't get that.
And Victor, as someone who's been in the game, in the front office, I mean, is it, how do we go about changing it, you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting question because I think that's kind of where we are right now. It's like, how do we change it? You look at the NBA, how did they kind of change their game where now it's like you can't even put a finger on a player as a defender because it's considered a foul. So you don't want to go to that extreme. And I think, kind of going along with Roberto was saying and kind of to what I was talking about earlier, my changes aren't necessarily on the field. My changes are more in the stadium. And that's what I want to see, more changes in the stadium, more use of social media and the technology, but leave the game how it needs to be. I don't agree with some of the rules they're playing with now in the independent leagues, with Major League Baseball just signing that agreement with, was it the Atlantic League or something like that, where they're going to experiment with, different size mounds and different things here and there. I think you leave it how it is and, you don't change as much on the field, but you do in the environment, which is the stadium and what the teams are going to do to keep their fans entertained and interested. I think that's where I would want to see them go, not necessarily affect anything on the field.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Roberto, what about you?
I think part of the problem too, kind of alluding to what Rob was talking about, is there's an obsession too now with launch angle, and guys coming up you got to hit the ball out the park. If not, you're not going to make it to the big leagues. And you have guys like, for example, Joey Gallo, monster power. The guy can probably hit 50 home runs a year, but he's going to hit 180. And, there's a lost art of contact. And just as a Yankee fan, you see guys like Miguel Andujar and even Gleyber Torres who can put contact on the ball, yet they're out here in trade rumors and things like that. And it's like, those are the guys you need to put up those crooked numbers on the scoreboard. And, instead of being up 1-0, it's being up. For me, I don't get a lot of those. Here's the thing. I always joke around about this, and hey, I lived it because I worked in the front office, but I always joke around that the front office is now being run in Major League Baseball by people who in the old days would have became accountants, would have became financial planners, people who love numbers, but they also love baseball. So now there's a spot for them, and now they're running teams. But these are people who never played, and I don't want to use that as a blanket statement for everyone, but people who never played, who are not given opportunity, which is great because it opens opportunities for people who, like myself, I never played. So I love that. But then, you start adding value in areas that you are comfortable with. And if you never played, then it's not going to be on the field. It's going to be, well, okay, how can I translate what I'm good at, numbers, to affect the team? Well, launch angle. And I always joke around about this with my friends. It's like, well, who cares how, what your angle is as long as you hit it out. I don't care if you hit it, 600 feet or 401, just 1 foot over. As long as you get it out, if it's a line drive home run or a monster shot, I don't really care about that. But now, the TV analysts are also playing into it. And it's like, yeah, this big thing about launch angles. And I'm like, launch angles? Who cares about that? And spin rates and all that. And I'm like, now it's getting a little bit out of control.
Yeah.
Because now, I joke around, it's like, well, how many breaths does it take before you step into the batter's box? Or how many steps should you take before you, get to the mound? I'm like, okay, now we're measuring stuff for the sake of measuring stuff, for the sake of saying that we're doing something.
Yeah.
The analytical part started out as something that could definitely be beneficial, and I think they took it a step too far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
and I think the way you rein it back is kind of like what I heard from Major League Baseball, where they're playing around with this rule as well in the Atlantic League, where they're going to limit your shifts. You can't have a certain amount of players over, past second base. That one I agree with, because now we're taking something that, and let me back up and preface this by saying I don't necessarily agree that the shift is a bad thing, because I see it as a fault in a hitter. If a hitter can't hit the other way to go against the shift, then of course they're going to shift, because now you're just being one-dimensional. Right. But that being said, it's the numbers and the people who are in the decision-making positions who are just not people who played the game. So they're trying to bring value to the game in the ways they know how, and that's by crunching numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to ask.
Jeff.
Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
I just wanted to, tail on that a little bit, because I think there's got to be, because we've talked about the shift thing and before, and I look at the players in a sense where coming up, a lot of like one of the gentlemen mentioned, you don't make it to the big leagues if you don't hit the ball out, or if you're Lucas Duda, you've got to hit the home run, and the teams are shifting on you. But you know what? If back in the day, if you shifted on Pete Rose, he'd hit it where you were not, and the players have to make those adjustments. I mean, you can hit if they're shifting on you, you can hit 350 if you lay that bunt down the third base line, and make them stop, and then go back to hitting the home runs. But the front office, the analytics of the front office just won't allow that, because that's not what they want to pay you to do if you're projected to be a 35, 40 home run hitter. And, so it's kind of like, well, where are we going, Major League Baseball? Are we trying to win, or are we trying to just make baseball players be what they are on the back of their baseball cards? And I think there just doesn't seem to be any room for baseball players to make adjustments and change their game up, right? I mean, that's a little frustrating for me, because, let's say in a playoff game, I go back to 2015 when the Mets were in the World Series. If Lucas Duda had come up and there was a shift on and it was a crucial point in the game, why wouldn't he lay down a bunt and just, keep the inning going, or, something? I mean, you just have to change. You do the unexpected that's not on the back of your baseball card. That, I think, something that can't be quantified by all this analytics, and that could change the course of a game.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so we'll see. I mean, look, I think, the game has to be careful. And look, I still believe that in the end, the game belongs to the players. And I think, some of what all of you are talking about, players making adjustments and things like that. I mean, we can talk about, so I think it was Roberto who talked about, or maybe Victor, who talked about how in the NBA you can't touch a guy and stuff like that. Yeah, they've changed that. But also, too, the players began to become more proficient as shooters, right? So that's why we see the game is wide open, because guys can shoot it from anywhere. And it's not just the guards. It's the big men. It's even centers. I mean, Brook Lopez out there shooting 3-pointers, right? So you're talking about the players making adjustments and the game then changing, because in the end, it's the players who are playing the game. So, at some point, I agree with all of you guys. I mean, the game belongs to the players. And I think, allow the players to play. But it's sort of like, there's the pressure from the front office, right? Because they value certain things. And if they're going to value certain things, then players are going to try to do those things so that they can get the most, in terms of salary and stuff like that. So it's a complicated situation. But hey, listen, as we close this thing out, I want to come back to where we started, and that's back to our New York roots. 2019 season. Who's going to, when the dust is settled, who's going to rule New York, the Mets or the Yankees?
I think it's going to be the Yankees. That's my outlook every year. But I think, obviously, I think we're ahead in terms of, construction of the team. And don't get me wrong, I'm going to be, objective here from a baseball standpoint. And I like the moves the Mets have made. But in terms of a team that's close, I think the Yankees are a little further along. So I think at the end of the season, we're going to be, toast of the town.
Okay.
Right. I have to agree with that. I'm definitely going with the Yankees. The Mets made really good moves. I know a lot of people kind of freaked out when they traded for Robbie Cano and Diaz, trading away their top prospects and things like that. But I think the moves were solid. Prospects aren't always promised to produce the way they have been in the minors and things like that. But I see the Mets improving a lot from last year as long as they continue to stay healthy. Obviously, the pitching has to carry them a little bit more. But at the end of the day, I think the Yankees all the way. Definitely.
No surprise there.
Well, there shouldn't be a surprise on the other end, but we'll give you a chance if you wanted to.
So, Rob, what about you?
Well,
it's okay to be realistic.
Yankee fans, Yankee fans are always planning the parade in March and April. So, I get it. With the Mets, honestly, you never know what you're gonna get. So this year could be a step up from last year, or we could completely go in the opposite direction. Right now, if you ask me, coming out of spring training, I think our pitching staff has got everything in place to take us all the way through October. That being said, our lineup could be great. It could be terrible. And with the Mets, it's usually one or the other. Yeah. So it's hard to say. Listen, with the Yankees, you've got from top to bottom in your lineup is right there.
We're gonna hit some home runs this year.
You're gonna hit some home runs, but your pitching is gonna be a problem.
Yeah.
And I don't think you're gonna overcome the Red Sox. I think the Red Sox are still the cream of that division. I hope, for the Mets, I think, just to say who's going to be the toast of the town.
Yes, that's the
question. If
the
Mets make the playoffs, it'll be the Mets, because I think there'll be a little more excitement.
All right. Well, for me, I'm a Mets fan. I think when the dust settles, the Yankees are going to have the better season. I think the Yankees are the better team, but I'm not rooting for them. I'll be rooting for my Mets. But I think the Yankees have a better team. So.
Well, there we go. A voice of reason there.
Yeah, you know why? The only reason why is because it's late here on the East Coast. I'm getting tired and I want to go to bed.
Well, we should have another call at the end of the season, and we'll see kind of how it turned out.
No, we'll do something even better than that. We'll have another call at the All-Star break.
All right.
Oh, okay.
All right. We'll get together at the All-Star break, and we'll have a conversation at that point, because at least we'll have half of the season behind us and we'll have something to talk about.
All right. Yeah, that sounds good.
All right.
Okay.
All right, fellas. Well, listen, I appreciate you taking time out to talk a little New York baseball. It's been fun, man. I look forward to it, man. Good idea, man. Victor, you were talking about the end of the season, but we're going to do it the All-Star break. So we're going to get the gang back together again. But thanks, guys, for coming on today.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for having us, Jeff.
Okay.
Thanks,
I'll
Jeff.
talk to each one of you soon. That's right. Let's go Mets. All right.
All right, later.
Take care, guys.
Take it easy.